Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. You know, today we're going to talk about the importance of security. Security to our businesses, security to us personally, and what kind of security it would even take to protect something much larger and more important. Let's say like our country. Our guest tonight is former Secret Service agent Joe McDavid. And Joe has actually protected more than 20% of the U.S. presidents, which is more than any other agent in history. And we're really going to learn some behind-the-scenes things of what it takes to provide service at that level. Don't go anywhere. This is an episode you're not going to want to miss. Stay with us. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back. You know, I'm really excited about our show tonight. As I mentioned, we'll be talking with former agent Joe McDavid, and I'm really personally excited to find out the behind the scenes of what it really takes to be a part of something this large. I'm here with my friend Joe McDavid. Joe, how are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. A lot of people really don't know the history of the Secret Service. You know, we kind of, I know I was at an event one time where Colin Powell was there, and Secret Servicemen just came in and took over, and I didn't, up until that point, I really didn't realize how much is going on, and they just kind of take over the place. And
well, that's their job.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable, and I think most of the time we're just kind of oblivious as to what's going on. But when we think of Secret Servicemen, we kind of associate that with protecting somebody very important, say like a president, but really the history of the Secret Service is quite a bit different. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Secret Service began in 1865. Following the Civil War, there was tremendous counterfeiting problems in the United States. They estimate that from 50 to 70% of all the money in circulation was counterfeit. The reason was that there were 1,600 Federal Reserve banks, or banks that were chartered by the federal government, that were allowed to print currency of their own design. And you may be walking around with 16 or 17 different designs of currency in your pocket. So a counterfeiter could just come in and decide he opens the Bank of Pembroke Pines or whatever and print his own money and put it into circulation. And there was a need for some type of enforcement to stop this. And on one of the unique features of this, of the establishment of the Secret Service, is on the last bill that Lincoln signed was the establishment of the Secret Service before he went to Ford's Theater that night and was assassinated.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think he could have ever anticipated they would have been involved in presidential protection later on.
Wow, that's very interesting. Now, Secret Service agent, that's not something that when you're in, you know, first grade and they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a Secret Service agent.
Right.
That's not the common thing. How did you decide to really get into this line of work?
Well, I had been a Marine officer, and a friend of mine had been recruited by the Secret Service. He came to me and asked me would I be interested, and I said certainly. I thought that would be a great career because my background in the Marine Corps had fit into what they were looking for at the time. I made application and basically was selected. I had to go through a couple of panels of interviews, and I was selected for the job. And one day I get this call that, hey, you're in, and I did not know that they had done a complete background on me during the period of time. They looked at everything that I'd done from the time I was born to the very moment I had gone to work. And, but it was a long and arduous background or time waiting, and but it was exciting. And when I got in, I was proud to be there. It's
good to hear that every company, including something like this, has a referral program.
Right.
Your buddy's like, hey, what are you doing? I wonder if he got any kind of a deal for recruiting you.
Well, I don't think so.
No, probably not. And so I know we talked a little bit about the history of the Secret Service, but tell us a little bit about your history. I mentioned on the opening that you had been with at least 20% of the presidents. Right. But
makes me sound real old.
Yeah, and whatever your regimen is, I'm going to talk to your wife after about what you do, because he's 106 years old. It's amazing. No, but you've had an extensive history.
Yes, I have. I've been on protective details for 7 sitting presidents of the United States, 2 that were not presidents at the time but became president. I started with President Lyndon Johnson, and I retired with the Clinton administration. But following that, I was assigned to George W. Bush through a company that was providing protection for candidates. And then I had the unique experience of being contacted about Barack Obama, whom I had no idea who he was. And
none of us did. So when he was still a senator of Chicago?
He was a senator, yes, and I was recruited to, or asked to come and do security advances for him. And later they asked me to take over his detail, and I told him I would for a short period of time, but it ended up to be 3 months.
Wow.
But long, hard campaign.
Now, he was one of the ones I was talking about. He kind of seems like the guy that's like, you could almost just call and be like, hey, let's go catch a game, man, have a couple of beers. Yeah, you know, just one of them real laid back, everyday Joe type guys.
Is he like that? He's just a Texas guy that he's kind of like his mother, though. He'll tell you exactly what he thinks.
Yeah.
And but he's a very personal guy. You can enjoy sitting down and talking to him, and he's a big sports fan, so you know, you could enjoy him.
Oh yeah, that's a common ground you always have. Now, is there a big difference between W and then working with his father?
Yeah, they're different personalities. Bush Sr. is a very laid-back individual, very nice gentleman, a great sports fan, very intense. He's always moving, never slows down. He plays a round of golf in about an hour and a half, which is phenomenal. And of course, the course is clear.
Everybody's driving. He's running alongside.
Exactly. But he plays tennis. I've seen him play golf and tennis in the same day. But just a real active guy.
Wow. Now, we talked a little bit about, obviously you've been in the game for a long time, but and you mentioned that originally you recruited in by a friend, but what is the official interview process like? I mean, is it kind of like, you know, with most jobs, it's like, hey, let's meet, we'll sit down, and tell me about, you know, where you were raised, did you graduate high school? I suspect the actual interview process.
It's a little different. The first thing that you must do is take a test, a written examination. Once you pass that, you're brought in and interviewed by one individual who will decide whether you meet the qualifications and basically talk to you. And he will tell you, or he or she will tell you, that you're not going to get the job. And basically, you can walk away or come back. But if you walk away, they're never going to look for you again. But if you come back, that's what they want to find out, if you really want the job or not. Once you have gone through that first interview, you'll be referred to a polygraph operator who will do a polygraph about your background. It's basically on certain areas of your background. Once you've passed the polygraph, you're then invited in to speak to a panel of 3 agents, working agents, who will interview you for about 2 hours. They will get a feel for what type of person you are, whether you're a team player, whether you're an individualist, whatever. And once that's done, you will, and you've passed that part, they all write something positive about you. You will be sent for a physical examination. Once that is done, you will be placed into a pool of personnel in Washington, and then the director and his staff will pick a person from that pool, and generally they'll select 10, and they'll select maybe 2 people out of that group.
So even if it's not, even if you're the best at what you do, it's really just a thinning process from here to here, and then eventually you might be one of the lucky couple to get picked. Well, we're going to take a short break, and I wanted to hear a little bit more about the physical demands of what you'd have to meet, and a little bit of the training when we come back. More with Joe McDavid when we come back. Stay with us. This is crazy. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back. We've been talking here with Joe McDavid, former Secret Service agent. That's difficult to say, former Secret Service agent. And certainly you've worked with so many amazing people. And we were talking a little bit about the interview process, how, you know, how there's a pruning and a thinning out. But tell us a little bit about the physical demands of, do you have to stay, I would imagine that you have to stay in pretty tip-top.
Yeah, you do. It's tremendous. It's a tremendous effort to stay in shape because you're traveling all the time. You're not eating well, and you're working rotating shifts. But presently, each agent must be able to run 3 miles in under 15 minutes. Do the military's PFT or PRT test, and they are tested on that. If they fail to accomplish that, they are not on the detail. They'll be removed until they meet these physical requirements. Wow. Same time, they have to be able to shoot their weapons and be excellent with those. But jogging every day is a common thing that happens with the Secret Service agents. many physical activities, basketball, football. They'll play anything they can while they're on the road just to keep busy and keep in shape.
Well, I know some of the presidents too. They have a pretty detailed physical routine. I know
Sure.
Obama loves to play basketball.
Right,
and
right.
does a lot of things. W, and I think both of them were runners, and they do quite a bit.
Carter was a runner,
Was he?
and Clinton was a runner. W was a runner,
Yeah.
and HW he ran, played golf.
Plus, he
yeah,
did it all.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a runner. I know it doesn't look like it, but I run 4 or 5 days a week, and I'll tell you, running 3 miles in 15 minutes, that's about, I take about twice as long to do that. So that would be a real tough feat in itself, for sure.
And they have men and women doing it. So
Wow.
that's, I mean, there's no breaks for anyone. Everybody
Yeah.
has to do it.
Well, give me a few, obviously the type of show we are, I hate negativity.
Right.
I'm not going to be like, give us some dirt on this person. But tell us a couple of some of the situations that maybe stand out to you the most. Maybe just a few of your most interesting personal experiences over the time you served.
Okay. Well, I think one of the most interesting, twice I have had the post where the incoming president and the outgoing president go down to be sworn in. It is one of the most remarkable changes you've ever seen. The outgoing president comes down and looks like he's been beaten up.
Yeah,
and
turned white.
Yeah, and the incoming president looks like he's so happy he can't believe he's won the prize.
Yeah.
And they go down, an hour later they come back and it's just the reverse. The guy that's got the job now is like, what have I done? And the outgoing president like, you got it, sucker. And
Yeah.
so but I've been in that position twice, and it's unbelievable to watch.
Well, I know that there's a lot of speculation in the media well, I guess it's really not speculation, but if you look at when a president takes office and then you see footage just a year or two later,
Right.
the transformation physically, I mean, they look like a
Absolutely.
different person.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you can speculate on this or not, but everybody talks about, a president's book, that
Yeah.
each president will get kind of, they'll get information to stuff that they, all
Right.
kinds of stuff that the average person doesn't know.
Yeah. Well, there is a transference. They do meet and talk, and they exchange ideas. And when you think about it, the sitting president has nobody other than the former presidents who sat in his chair. So when he has to have advice, who can he go to but these guys? And what the former presidents receive all the briefings that the president does, so that they have the same information he does. Once he decides to call on one, they're up to speed on what's going on.
Well, that's a really good point, because in so many careers you can go to, if you're a salesman, you go to your sales manager, or you go to if you're an engineer, there's a million people to go to and be like,
Right.
Okay, how do I do this? Show me the ropes.
Sure.
And in that job, you really got the last guy.
You got the last guy, right?
So
you've got to know what you're doing. You got to have good advice.
Well, let me ask you. I would suspect. I know that I'm a pretty big sports fan. I don't know if you're a big sports fan, but I know that they say that the best defense is a good offense.
Right.
And I would suspect out of any field out there, that would be no field that would be more true than what you do. I guess with what you do, the day where nothing happens is really a good day.
Best day of all.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and in our eyes, when you're dealing with the president, you have to be proactive. The president does nothing off the record. You'll see where the president went to McDonald's off the record. Well, 20 of those people in there are agents.
Guy behind the counter service.
Right. So we know where he's going, what he's going to do. He never does anything that we don't know about, because we can't allow it to happen.
Yeah.
And we put people in the crowd. We do a lot of things that are, people don't think about: windows, fire extinguishers. All these things come to mind when you're dealing with the president. Manhole covers in the street, we check those. There's thousands of things that have to be checked, and it's just not a simple ride into town and ride back out. And we can't do it without the local police. Local police do an outstanding job of assisting, but it's a very complex, comprehensive operation.
Well, there's so many variables and moving parts. Something, that kind of a strategy must be really overwhelming.
It is.
And you know, I always think about, you know, all the different types of things you must look into before you actually have an event take place.
Right.
Like you said, manholes. But do all presidents have threats? I would suspect that, you know, with half the world, you're a pretty popular guy. The other half, you're a pretty popular guy, not in a good way. So well, do some have more than others, or?
Well, the president averages about 100,000 threats a year.
Wow.
And we estimate that 5% of those people are willing and capable of committing the act that they say they want to do. But think of all the assassination attempts in the past few years, and we didn't know about those people. So there are others out there. But and that's one of the most difficult jobs you have, is to receive a threat, go in and interview an individual who's made that threat. He could be drunk in a bar, or he could be some person who really has the ability to kill the president. And you have to make that judgment. So many times we have to make judgments that psychiatrists would never do, or psychologists would never do in years, but we have to decide the degree of danger that that person may present to the president. And it's tough to do. Yeah,
you could see why they get so gray. I mean, that's several thousand threats a day, every day. Yeah. And then you say 5% are actually serious. That's,
yeah, absolutely.
That's absolutely amazing. Yeah. But I wanted to talk about, you know, let's say, and be honest with me about this, but, you know, you're standing next to the president, right?
Right.
And then a gun goes off, or you hear this big boom.
Right.
What do? I mean, do you leap in front of the bullet, or how does that really work? Because, you know, you hear about
Well, we are trained constantly on reacting to certain situations, like a gunshot, and it's almost like a football team. Everybody has a position around the president, and they will make their move or their block or whatever you may want to call it. And I refer to the time that Tim McCarthy was shot when Reagan was shot. Everybody said, "My goodness, you know, he jumped in front of that bullet." No, he didn't. He was doing what he was trained to do.
Took his position.
He took his position and happened to get hit. Had he had time to think about what was going on, he'd have been under the car with everybody else. But he reacted and was hit. But you know, they pay us for what we might have to do, not what we really do.
Yeah, sure.
So
it's not like in the movies with Clint Eastwood where the guy's in the audience and the bullet's coming and he's, you know, diving in front.
No, but Clint's a lot braver than we are.
Right. Yeah, he is. So really, when you hear the sound, it's just everybody has a position, and where that happens to go is what happens.
Right.
And, wow.
And then we cover and evacuate, get him out of there.
Well, I want to ask you about one other thing. Well, there's so many things. I swear, I almost want to make, you're the new co-host. Tom is out. I could talk with you all day. I'm so intrigued. But I wanted to ask you, you know, there's so much controversy around Kennedy's assassination.
Right.
And, you know, you hear there was a second shooter, and I was actually talking to somebody yesterday that was at a museum in Washington where they actually show the real footage, and he was saying that, you know, they actually turn around, the driver possibly, they speculate, was the second shooter. And there's so many things, but I wanted to ask you, do you have an opinion of it, or do you have some inside information that we possibly don't have, or can tell us something new? Because again, this is something that's still going out there. It's so broad. Let's take a quick break, and then I want to know what you know, my man. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are here with my friend here, Secret Service agent, former Secret Service agent, Joe McDavid, and we were talking a little bit before the break about Kennedy. Again, there's been so much surrounding his death and the mystery of his death, but what can you tell us?
Well, most of the people that were on the follow-up car, the one behind Kennedy, were at the White House when I went there, and I have talked extensively with most of those people. I've been to the book depository. I've looked out the window. I've sighted a rifle out of it, which we all have to do. We all have to go through training there. As a former Marine, I can tell you that the shots that Lee Harvey Oswald fired were not difficult at all, because there was a low downgrade that the limo was traveling at the time. He could have fired all 3 shots. I believe that he did, and it's I don't have any doubt that he was the lone assassin. The problem I have with, and I think most of us have, is what went on in Mexico City when Lee Harvey Oswald was there. Who did he talk to? What did he do? We don't know anything about that. But I believe he was the lone assassin, and I think that forensics has proven that basically that it had to be him.
Yeah, because you hear so much about a second shooter, or it's a driver, or there was the mafia.
Right,
he was pretty against the mafia, or he was actually, it could have been about possibly something to do with currency. But you're saying you were there, you've looked through, you know what the shots were.
Yeah, and
not difficult.
I wasn't present when at the shooting, but
Sure.
I've been there and I've studied it, like we all have studied it.
Some wacko.
Yeah, and
could have happened to anybody.
Basically, he carried out the mission by himself. But what was the motivating factors? We don't know. What did he do in Mexico City? We really don't know.
Sure.
And I don't know that we'll ever know.
Yeah, probably won't. And during the last break, I was having people in our crew. They said that was actually going to be my last question, and people were saying, ask him about what just happened down in South America with those Secret Service. I'm sure that's a body you wouldn't want to served on this last one.
No,
and you know what's interesting is we film every week out of the beautiful Carib Resort, and I guess where it happened in South America, the place was actually called the Carib.
That's correct.
So where we film, we were getting hundreds of calls here every week. People thought that this was where the prostitutes were, but is that a pretty common thing that happens? I mean, you guys are kind of like the it guys on campus, like, these big timers come into town. And
no, I think it's indicative of the moral fiber of our country. People do things now that they didn't do years ago. These guys broke every rule in the book. They should have been fired. They've embarrassed all of us. We had 125 years of integrity, and they've destroyed that. I know that most of the retired guys would never even consider doing anything like that, because when you go into a foreign country, they're going to attempt to compromise you in some fashion. And when you're standing in a bar and some good-looking woman walks up to you, it's not because you're the best-looking guy in the world there. It's because you got some money or they want something out of you. And these guys lost their head. If I know the former SAC, special agent in charge of the detail, who was from this area, and talked to him, and I know that a year and a half, 2 years ago, that would not have occurred, because they had controls, and people should not be allowed to do that. What they were doing, we have a hard time understanding it.
Yeah, sure.
Because they broke every security rule in the book.
Well, and there's always one knucklehead. That just blows it for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
And just taints the name of something.
Usually we could take care of the knucklehead. This time they did.
If you were on that detail, you would have said, I need to speak with you.
That's right. He'd have been on the plane home.
Well, I'll tell you, Joe, it's been a real pleasure having you. And, on the show every week, we try to make a brief point of something, for the entrepreneurs out there that are trying to build successful businesses, or, resolve problems in their life, and try to give them a little bit more comfort. And, really, when we were talking, what I was thinking of is just sometimes there's something that's bigger than us. Unfortunately, I'm sure over the years there have been Secret Service agents that have died in the line of duty, and that's a very sad thing. It's a very sad thing for the family. But if somebody like the president dies, you're talking about uncertainty for millions of people. Right. The country where that happened could be viewed as vulnerable. There could be an attack. Ultimately, thousands or even millions of people could die. So you have a great, there's a lot of sacrificing for the ultimate goal. And I know that the biggest downfall of corporate America, particularly even at the Fortune 5 level, they say is pronoun disease. And I remember the first meeting years ago when I was in there, they said, we have a case of pronoun disease we need to cut out. But, it's like I this, and I feel this way, and they this. And I know that the old sales trainer Zig Ziglar, his motto was, don't worry about money or being successful, help everybody around you be successful, and then automatically you'll become successful. And I think that, the lesson today is to really, if you're a part of a team, if you're a part of a family unit, if you're part of something that's bigger and more important, don't look at it so much of what's in it for me right now, but as long as that objective is being accomplished and you're taking care of the family, so to speak, then you're certainly going to be well taken care of. And I know the U.S. government did certainly take care of you very well, and they've been there for you.
They have.
Although I'm not going to say there's been no complaints, I'm sure. But well, Joe, thank you very much. Come back anytime. We'd love to have you.
Certainly. Appreciate it.
Again, come back. Thank you very much, guys. That's our show for tonight. I wanted to thank our guest, and thanks for tuning in. And we wanted to say get involved in your local community and be forgiving of others. Good night, everybody.